My name is Duke Ferris, and I never really grew up. I play video games for a living. I drive a silly car. I brew beer. I like to eat, and I like to drink. I'm a big nerd, so in order to impress girls, I learned how to cook. Hey, welcome to another episode of Badass Cooking, the show where we get right down to the basics, make some simple, delicious food that anybody can cook. None of this fancy stuff, but it tastes as good as the fancy stuff. Today's recipe is going to be roast chicken thighs with a marmalade and bourbon glaze. This is really easy. You need some chicken, some marmalade, and some bourbon. That's it. That's the whole recipe, folks. Take your chicken. If you're watching your weight, never get boneless, skinless. You want bone in, you want the skin on. The skin is what is delicious. If you're watching your weight, take off a little bit of the skin because it is kind of fatty. Use a good sharp knife or leave it on. Frankly, it's delicious and it's going to be nice and crisp when we're done. Now, our sauce is plenty simple. Orange marmalade, nice and thick. Make sure and use plenty because we're going to baste it a couple of times. But that's too thick, so what are we going to thin it out with? Bourbon, of course. Mix that up so it's sort of thin but still sticky. Get yourself a roasting rack. But Duke, you say, I don't have a roasting rack. Well, go to your toaster oven and pull this thing out of it. Put it on a pan. You've got a roasting rack. Use our tin foil, of course, because this gets really sticky. It can be a major nightmare to clean up. Or it can be really simple. Put your thighs skin side up. You want to coat with this stuff. Go ahead, use your hands. You never be afraid to get your hands all in the food. You'd hate to see it at a restaurant, but the chef has his hands in your food like right up into the last second when it's brought to you. All right, take that. And we go put it in our oven at 400 degrees. Set a timer for 40 minutes, and we're good to go. Now, roasting a chicken is actually really kind of hard. Getting the breast fully cooked and the drumsticks fully cooked, but then it dries out the breasts. Roasting a whole chicken's hard, so we're not going to do it. Just roast the thighs. They're terrific. You got lots of nice skin that crisps up. It's all even all the way through. Makes it really easy to roast, and it's going to be delicious. All right, so it's been about 20 minutes. We're about halfway through, so we're going to baste the chicken. Got a nice basting brush here. Got our bourbon and marmalade sauce. Oh, that's looking good. If you don't have a basting brush, you can just use a spoon. Back in it goes. All right, today's badass ingredient is, of course, bourbon. And if I have to explain to you why bourbon is badass, you are watching the wrong show. All right, it's been 40 minutes. Our chicken is done. Look at that, nice and golden brown. That skin is going to be so delicious. I know. The girl's probably going to want to take the skin off because it's full of fat, but make her try a little bit of it, because just a bite, because it's really delicious. And look underneath there. Can you imagine trying to clean that off if we hadn't put down the tin foil? And here we got it. It's roast chicken thighs with a bourbon and marmalade glaze. Only 2 ingredients, and boy is this stuff good.